waste my time today! You're dead to me! Everyone else!
Beautiful! I'm a son born invincible. He deserves the joy of your spite as well. Who can make me hurt?
Get your affairs in order, Robo-Chat!
We must work together, my brother!
Keep up the fastball!
It's how you come, subjugator! We must relish this thing together! Show no mercy, Gold Hunter! We have found
Subjugate this!
You truly killed him? Our fight deserves a grander setting! To the abyss! I descend!
It takes!
I will avenge you, brother! It hurts!
Hey, what is up guys? It's Spaghetti Jack here, coming at you with another build video, and today we're going to be taking a look at my Harlot Harlowe build. So this is a dot-based scientist build, using obviously our scientist con. Whenever Harlowe shocks an enemy, she automatically entangles and irradiates that enemy. Whenever Harlowe entangles an enemy, electric arcs shoot out from that enemy at nearby enemies. We don't really care about the special effect of Scientist, or sorry, the secondary special effect of Scientist. We very much care about the shock auto-entangling enemies, because this is where most of our skill spec looks like. And you can see there's a lot of shock here. So first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to take a look at our gear slots. Now, our Scientist is probably the most important piece of gear we've got. If you don't have a good scientist, the build does kind of fall apart. That is due to the +5 skill we've got in it, which is action at a distance. So we'll move over to that now. In skill tree, action at a distance. Whenever Harlowe applies a status effect to an enemy, she gains a chance to apply that status effect to each entangled enemy. This is incredibly good with what we're doing. So We'll go over the gear, and then we'll start looking at the skill tree, and we'll go over why we pick what we pick in skill trees. So first up is our Stellium. Now the Stellium has the highest shock dot in the game. It's just got the highest dot chance. Not dot chance, dot damage, I apologize. And the way dot damage is calculated is it takes the damage of the dot off of your card and applies that as a per second multiplier against all of the damage you've dealt to the enemy. So you'll see with our firmwares, we're taking a lot of on-shot damage for this build, and that's because as on-shot is a multiplier within the damage formula itself, it will make our dots go astronomical. So this Stellium, it has Jacobs and Torg parts on it. Torg helps the dot even more, so it makes the base dot even stronger, and then Jacobs applies a ricochet if we crit. Most of the time we will be critting because of just how the build works and what we're putting in places. But when it does ricochet, it will spread your dot across more enemies. We have a Katagawa's Revenge. This is for action skill uptime. Our action skill uptime is not very good because we only have one cooldown skill, but it is Harlowe's best cooldown skill. It is a confirmative reality. Whenever Harlowe shoots an entangled enemy, her and her allies restore a portion of all of their action skill. So it's 1% per shot because we're not putting 3 points into it. There is never a need to put 3 points into it. So if we just head over this way, you can see I was doing some testing over here. 9-second cooldown. If I shoot him, it comes back. We need more swap speed as well. But obviously we've got neutron capture, will shoot, it'll dot. And as you can see, all of the enemies around here are getting quite high dot percentages. When you run out of neutron capture, you just shoot one enemy again and you'll get it all back. Shoot this. And this is just the normal gameplay rotation. You'll see in the background that sometimes I won't do that. Sometimes it's just more accurate to do this across multiple enemies. It just depends on what kind of environment you're in. We have our wombo combo. Our wombo combo is for bossing. The dot on it doesn't really matter because we're taking advantage of how wombo combo works with neutron capture. So neutron capture, all damage Harlow deals. All damage Harlow's unstable energy pocket deals to enemies is stored. Whenever it explodes, Harlow gun shoots convert into radiation. It's 4% of action skill damage dealt. This is quite nice because we're just pumping a bunch of action skill damage into it from tree anyway. However, the underbarrel rockets shot by wombo combo is ×8. They're just ×8. So if you give it, 150% damage, I need to restore my action skill here. Shoot this. It hasn't hit enough enemies, but you just load up. You can see you're getting a couple mil in there. Bosses aren't living through that. And once your neutron capture runs out, they're dead anyway. So that is our most important kit. If we're looking down here, we would probably want a Vlad of Thunderbarrel because it gives us more damage. And Bullets to Spare 3 is just the best firmware augments for the wombo combo for the specific build. I'm not going to be going into Bullets to Spare Spaghetti because it is up on the Mobalytics link. If you want to take a look at the Mobalytics link, it's in the description. It does also have an alternative skill spec that I'm not going to be going over just because I don't really want to. It's not fun. I think the playstyle works. It's absolutely fine. It's using the new plasma file. It's really it does work and it is really good, but I'm not interested in it. I much prefer neutron capture over 0 point. I forgot the name of the skill. Yeah. If you want to use 0 point, you can. It is a bossing option now. You don't need to use this. You can just go this. Switch to rad mode and nuke a boss with dot damage, but I'm not here nor there. Kill Spring is quite nice. It obviously converts 100% of excess damage into healing orbs. All of those healing orbs will go onto our health. Once our health is full, it will go onto our shield, which is why we're using amp, but we'll go over that in a second. And then obviously that will go over onto our overshield as well, which is more what's for dinner soup. So Kill Spring is just the best option here. 100% of our excess damage isn't actually that much because we are dotting. So whatever the final dot on the enemy is, that's what your healing orb will be. So if it's, 2 mil, you'll get a 2 mil healing orb, which crazy for me to say isn't that much, but I've seen like 12k healing orbs, 12 mil healing orbs come off when you super duper. You've got enough time to just build up all your stacks and the dots go insane. You'll see some clips of that in the background with the bossing runs. What's for dinner? We're using triple amp here. Triple amp is the most important thing you can get on this shield. It is 150 on-shot damage. Harlow gets no on-shot damage in tree, so this is the only way you're going to get it apart from firmwares. Firmwares we'll go over in a minute, but almost all of them are just on-shot bonuses or grenade bonuses. Grenade bonuses will make sense in a second when we look over our grenade. So our grenade is a waterfall. This is the best grenade you can get for this build. It's got lingering payload and alchemic agent. The augment, sorry, not the augment, but the stat boost, so nuke, get throwing, whatever, not get throwing, nuke, extra charge, cooldown, whatever, those don't really matter. I suggest getting nuke because it is just more damage, which means more dot damage. However, the cooldown one is better. It is more cooldown. Having an extra charge here is also great. But what you are really looking for is lingering payload and alchemic agent. 300% status effect chance on a 60%. You're always just going to be applying status effects. So if I show you here, enemies around you, throw the grenade, all of them entangled, all of them entangled, all of them irradiated. Now, you will run into an area and you will throw a waterfall as the first thing you do. That is how this build works. We can run over here quickly. First thing you're going to do is you're going to run up to them and you're going to throw a grenade. You're going to throw a grenade to entangle them, and then you're going to shoot this. That will kill most things. And then, obviously, on top of that, you dot them. You dot them with your stellium. And the final piece of the puzzle is Transfuse the Prime Potency. So it's an icon. It's a melee one enhancement. Realistically, you can get away with a purple one just with primed potency. However, you realistically want a transfuser on this because apart from the 100% status effect sharing across entangled enemies, which is insane, again, this will spread up to 3 more nearby enemies. So not only are you sharing your status effects through your skill tree, you're also then sharing it through your enhancement, which will double the status effects, which will then double more status effects when they spread, which will then double more status effects when they spread. It is just a sequential system. The more status effects you have on enemies, the higher your status effects will go, just because of the way they work and the way Harlow is cycling them through her skill tree. This is quite interesting, action at distance, because it takes our gun status effects and turns them into skill status effects, which means they don't really get much of our gun bonuses after they've been converted. So if we go into our skills tab and we look at this, our gun damage, 31%. It's not exactly that high. We don't particularly care. However, we have no skill bonuses, and that is because in our specialization, we don't take I am a gun. I am a gun would be really, really good here for our skill passives. However, the 1-to-1 dot conversion on scientist and action at a distance, we don't need higher percentages on top of that. You can just have a 1-to-1 gun conversion on dot. The final thing for gear we're going to take a look at is our firmwares. Now, as I said, most of these are on-shot bonuses. So projectile speed, on shot, it makes the bullet go faster. Gun damage, this is very particular. I showed in my last aim on video, but on the Harlow one, I'm going to have the gun formula up in the description, and I'm also going to have it popped up on screen now. Gun damage goes in your first section where it says on-shot bonuses. On-shot is a multiplier to your soup. So if I go back in here, this 31.7% gun damage is getting times by 0.1. And then times by another 0.1. And then times by 1.5. There, it is like, it builds. So it's how we push more damage out of our status effects. You just have to have more on-shot bonuses. Unfortunately, there isn't that many ways of getting them outside of these two firmwares, so High Caliber 2, Active Fire 1. Active Fire is a new firmware that came with UVHM 7, so if you can't get Active Fire in this slot, just have Gadget Ahoy. Gadget Ahoy is fine. It's grenade cooldown. It means when you're in fights, you can throw more grenades more often, but it's whatever. It does not really matter. The Active Fire is just best here as our on-shot bonuses, and then our get throwing, grenade damage is increased by 35%. This 35% is fresh malt, so the same almost with if I had just high caliber, no amp, no active fire, that would be fresh malt. It's a unique multiplier that the grenade gets. So 0.35% or 0.35 times fresh malt and then splash radius. Splash radius just helps with things like the stellium. Say if I shoot it and I want to get 2 enemies next to me, the splash radius will help a little bit if I don't kill myself, but hey ho, we're fighting manglers. As you see there, if you go down, you're fine to get back up. Like, this isn't consistent, or not, it isn't consistent. It's more consistent than other skills because it does not rely on a lot of skills. Your dots are very, very high to begin with anyway, and then just putting more damage on top of that when you are walking is quite good. So the next thing we're going to take a look at is our skill tree. I've already gone over some small things, but there is some more stuff we need to take a look at. So action at a distance, as I've said, 100% status effect chance to entangle other enemies. Neutron decay. Whenever I radiate an enemy, I gain increased gun damage. This effect stacks. It's 10% per stack, 50% at max stacks. It's just 50% gun damage, which is very nice because it's soup. We don't actually have that much soup. You might be going, oh, but you've got gun damage here. This isn't soup. This is type bonus. So this is gun damage type bonus, which is separate in the damage formula from normal gun damage, which you'd find on like class mod or skill tree. If it says gun damage or a type damage on your enhancement, that is type damage. If it says up here weapon damage, again, that's on shot. Gun damage, this is so stupid, but this is also on shot. It would make sense if this gun damage was soup, but it's not, it's on shot. So this is the only soup we've realistically got. It's how we're getting soup in tree, it's how we're getting soup for our guns. Confirmative reality, we've already gone over this when we were looking at the Katagawa's Revenge, but we should just go over it again. Whenever I shoot an entangled enemy, me and all my allies restore a portion of our action skill cooldown. So if you had some friends, you know, I have no one that plays this build other than like randos. If you had friends and you were consistently playing with friends, this is the savior to all of your cooldown issues. All of your characters, none of, you know, if you've got a Harlow in the group and she's using confirmative reality, just don't spec cooldown. Just quite simply, just don't spec cooldown. And then to get us down further into the branches, we're taking momentum, critical hit damage, 15% for 12 seconds. You know, we're always entangling enemies. It does not have an internal cooldown. So once those 12 seconds are over of those 15%, 15% critical hit damage, the duration just resets. You just get another 12 seconds and then another 12 seconds and then another 12 seconds as long as you can entangle enemies. If they're already into the bottleneck here is when you stop having enemies to entangle. But hey ho, if you've got 15% crit damage active always, who cares? And then looking at our branches, more crit damage. Excited state is quite nice. We don't take it for the automatic next shot crit. We just take it for the crit damage. 35% crit damage is better than anything we can get anywhere else, and it does just help us move down here for our distributed function. 30% of damage dealt restored as shields from our action skills. Now, this is the rotation I was showing you earlier. You know, amp shot, neutron capture. This will damage enemies, which will then give you gun damage on your guns. It will also restore your shields, allowing you to amp more often than if you didn't have it. Trust me, I didn't used to have it, and the build was a lot worse. Last thing in green tree is decoherence. Harlow deals increased damage with all sources to entangled enemies. The second half of this doesn't matter. The bonus flux generator damage, you know, 9%, we're not using flux gen, so who cares? However, the entangled enemy bonus of 15% is very, very nice because it is a fresh damage number. It is a bonus element rather than just putting 15% more damage on top of your guns, whatever, it's just a new damage source. So it will get all your soup, it will get all your type bonuses if it fits the description. Not the description. If it fits the type, it will get the specific type bonus. So if you have skill damage, it will increase decoherence damage. If you had action skill damage, it wouldn't increase decoherence damage. So those are just some things to look out for when looking on gear. We have Red Tree up next. This is where most of our rad damage is coming from. So this is a lot of utility, a lot of cooldown, a lot of soup, bonus damage, shield uptime, critical hit damage. This is mainly focused on radiation damage because of our scientist. If we weren't doing scientist and we were just doing dot stuff, I probably wouldn't even take red tree. I would probably just go down blue. However, we are doing scientist, so we want the rad damage. So first up, action skill damage. Action skill damage will just make the initial hit of our chroma accelerator higher. So that 21,000 on detonation and the 8.5k on pass by, that's just getting 30% more soup. So it's just getting added to that. Whatever 30% is, just added on top of it. Elemental damage and status effect damage. Again, more status effect damage, more elemental damage. This is why if we look on here, our damage dealt is 20.9. The damage dealt is our elemental damage. And then obviously all of the elements have elements in as well, apart from rad, which is higher because of other things we've got in tray, specifically looking at enriched, 14% more. Again, I've been experimenting with moving these 2 points. I've done 2 in test subjects for cooldown. I've done 2 in bleeding edge for reload speed. Done 2 in fuzzy math for status effect chance. It doesn't really matter. You can kind of move these 2 points wherever you want. However, I just like them in the rad damage because that is our direct damage modifier for what we're doing. Whereas, you know, cooldown, you get your chroma back up quicker. Bleeding edge, you get to reload quicker, meaning your primed potency looping is quicker. You know, you've got these trade-offs, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but this is where I've landed right now. And then Great Red Dot, Harlow grade increased status effect duration, 36%. So this is just flat. It's just a flat 36% more time on your status effects. This is how we're ticking bosses down. This is how we're quite specifically ticking from one boss to another, how all of them die in succession. If we didn't have this, our dots wouldn't deal nearly enough damage because they wouldn't have enough time to build up on themselves. However, it's right here in tree. It's basically free. We need the 3 points anyway to get down the skill tree. So, and then we move into the branches. I say the branch. We're not using either of these. If we had a couple more skill points, I would suggest going over here, carry the 1 and practical applications. Level 70, this is where I'm probably looking. Again, entangle chance, this 50%, brilliant, who cares? And then practical application, skill damage, so this will affect our action at distance dot, it would affect decoherence. So these are probably where the points go next, just waiting. Glow up, Harlow gains critical hit chance with guns against irradiated enemies, 10%. We have enough crit chance. We have enough crit chance just from gear, skills, whatever. We don't really need more. The reason we take this is because Fissile Launcher is dog. Like, Fissile Launcher is wasted points. If you put points in Fissile Launcher, it's just not worth it. So it's the only place we can put points because we have to go Chain Reactor. Again, Chain Reactor is the same as Decoherence. It's a bonus element. As you can tell, it's bonus radiation damage to entangled enemies. So for every 1 dot, every 1 shock dot, you're getting 2 rad dots plus an decoherence dot. But the decoherence dot just takes whatever caused it. So if, you know, the shock dot caused the decoherence, then the decoherence dot will be shock. If the rad dot caused the decoherence dot would be rad. it just depends on where it comes from. It just depends on what's happening. And then finally up in the tree, Dirty Bomb. Whenever Harlow irradiates an enemy, creates a radiation exposure on that enemy. 40% of total irradiation damage. If we could put 2 points in this and it would be 80, God, I've tested atomic reactor before with an extra point in Dirty Bomb. It is really, really, really fun. However, you lose the entire reason we played this build, which is the scientist. And then Demon Core at the bottom of the tree. Harlow's unstable energy pocket travel. It shoots radiation darts. Whenever Harlow entangles an enemy while her action skill is active, automatically irradiates them. So this is another dot. If I shoot my action skill just up into the sky, which you'll see on some of my playthroughs, I'll just shoot it up to get as much damage, as much duration out of it as possible, because if you're shooting it to a crowd, you're detonating it early anyway, whereas if you shoot it upwards, you're getting as much out of Demon Core as possible. So for every 1 shock dot, you get 3 rad dots. Cool, isn't it? Really, really cool. And finally up is Blue Tree. Now, Blue Tree, we only actually put 5 points into. However, because of our class mod, we get an extra 2 for free. So the points we're putting in this tree is for Make Extraordinary. Harlow gains critical hit chance with all skills. This chance increases every time Harlow entangles an enemy. This effect stacks. The way Make Extraordinary works is quite interesting because it says with all skills. This is not traditionally true because Scientist is a skill on a class mod, but it's not a in-tree skill. So she doesn't know how to calculate it, which is why our dots aren't just in for critting. However, we still put this here because of the bonus it will give to Chroma Accelerator. All of our green tree, critical hit damage, this is all just bonus critical hit damage. So none of its guns, none of its action skill, none of its skill, it's just critical hit damage. So it applies to everything, which is where Make Extraordinary comes in really useful, because Make It will shoot a Chroma Accelerator into a field of enemies, and then Make Extraordinary will trigger, causing our Chroma Accelerator to deal more damage, causing our Neutron Capture to deal more damage, causing our dots to deal more damage. So it's just this cycle of going round and round and round and round until eventually you hit millions. There is clips in the background running on, I hope, if I can be bothered to edit that much. But if there's not, I will show at the end of the video clips of me doing Subjugator and Thal, and it will be quite interesting because you can just drop in and you can nuke the boss and it's not that difficult. On true UVHM7. Not saying that, you know, best Harlow build ever, it's not. It's really not the best Harlow build ever. It's dog shit compared to some of the stuff, but it's different. It's a Neutron Capture build that isn't doing wombo combo, infinite ammo, and it's not a Cosmic Brilliance Flux Gen build that's going triple green capstone, infinite uptime, infinite damage, infinite amp. Like we're taking skills that at least look interesting and do funny things. Last up is Ripple Effect. Whenever I kill an entangled enemy, I automatically entangle another one. This is great. You know, as I said earlier, we would probably carry the 1 because this is just another chance to entangle more enemies, and the more entangled enemies, the more rad damage we do, and the more rad damage that we do, the bigger our chroma is, etc., etc. And then we've got experimentations. Whenever I kill an entangled enemy, cause an explosion to all other entangled enemies. This is just here because the explosions don't do a lot of damage, nor do they dot very well. However, if, say, for example, experimentations gets a shock dot or happens off of a shock element, the shock nova will explode, which will trigger our scientist, which will then trigger ripple effect, etc. You know, start dotting things, start doing stuff. Last thing we're going to be taking a look at is our specializations. Your specializations are quite unique for this build. We go triple capstone, which is I just shat on green tree, but with it's specialization capstone, so it's fine. Bestie, we'll go from the bottom down. Fragmentation payload. Ordnances gain a chance to critically hit enemies and also critical hit damage. Just more crit damage. Our grenade is dealing most of the initial shock applications of our build. So the highest we can make those initial shock applications before we come in with the stellium and we just start nuking things, it's quite important. You could drop this and you could go, I am a gun. You know, I'm not discrediting that, but it's 15% or 16% gun damage with no stacks. Once and like you're not getting stacks until you've thrown a grenade anyway. So who cares? Next up is contamination. Critical hits, great status effect chance. This is fine. This is mainly for bossing. Mobbing, your prime potency stacking, so it doesn't really matter. You're shooting, reloading, shooting, reloading, shooting, reloading. So you have 100% chance to the dots always. However, in a boss fight, it is not always optimal to shoot reload. Sometimes it is just better to continue to shoot and hope contaminations will carry the dots over. Because if contamination carries the dots over, you're getting 4 or 5 dots immediately off the bat without having to do the reload animation in between and then wait for your fire rate again. Because your reload and then your fire rate are different. It's not you reload and then immediately be able to fire. You have to wait for your fire rate to go through first. Honed Mind, more crit chance and crit damage for action skill. It says action skill, it's not. It is just skill. However, it will boost your action skill, so it's kind of yin and yang. The critical hit chance, this will apply to things like decoherence, the dots from action at a distance. I'm just going to keep calling back to those two because they're the only two that I can actually remember. If I look in tree, you know, it will apply to chain reactor, it will apply to dirty bomb, those things. And then finally is the best defense. Vault Hunter gains increased damage dealt based on the fullness of their shields or health, whichever is higher. This is 30% soup. It's the best soup we got. We don't want rid of you this. We're not shooting enough to maintain maximum stacks or even get maximum stacks. I was using it when I first created this build. I think I was sitting on like 15 stacks normally, and like it wouldn't go much higher than that. 15% gun damage is not worth it. It's soup at the end of the day, and we've already got 60%, so it's just fuck it off. You could swap out best defense for in the zone if you are fine with aiming down sight. If you're not fine with aiming down sight, I would suggest doing the skill setup I've got. But if you are fine to do this, do this and then shoot and then reload and then aim and then shoot and then reload and then aim and then shoot and then reload, you can. If you want to do that, you can. I'm not saying you can't, but it's not my preferred playstyle, so I'm not going to. Well, that is all of the things on the build. We can click on this and we could go over all of the things that I just have available. I'm not going to because it's long and most of them are melee one shotguns with shock rad because they've got really high dot chances and dot damage. The kickballer is a bad representation actually. No, 48,000. 9k on the this, that's terrible. 16k on the Sweet Embrace. You know, you're looking at things like these. I also have a Rainmaker here, which is quite funny. It's the dog Rainmaker, so it's insta charge. You can use it for bossing, but it's the dog Rainmaker. Le dog. I've also realized none of my textures have loaded properly. Or if they have, they're just being really low quality while I'm filming this. I'm not refilming it, so whatever. This is the Harlow build. Yeah, you can see the dog in the inventory. This is the Harlot Harlowe build. Harlot Harlowe dot build. if you are interested, please go ahead and read the Mobalytics. It is a more in-depth and goes through a couple more skill interactions than I've done, just because I'm not making a 40+ minute build video. It's already 35 minutes at the moment, and that's probably too much. So I'm going to end it here. I will see you guys next week for my scheduled Sir Lancelot build video that I'm going to be doing. Or I might be doing Cards of Plenty. I'm not sure yet. I've also started making a Vex build, an Eldritch Boss Vex build, thanks to Lazy Data, who was playing it on stream yesterday. So she might be posted a little bit before I do any more build videos. However, who knows?